The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such fear. Thousands of alien beings filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a storm of panic that echoed through the crystal walls. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy sat in their designated areas, but today no one cared about protocol or proper seating. Ambassador Vex stood at the center podium, his blue skin pale with terror. The Rylon Federation had always been known for their calm nature, but today Vex's hand shook as he held the datapad containing the worst news the galaxy had heard in 1,000 years. "The Void Leviathan is awake," Vex announced, his voice barely steady. "Our deep space monitors detected its movement 3 days ago in the Omega Nebula. It has already consumed the Kepler-7 system completely." A wave of gasps and frightened whispers swept through the chamber. Every species in the galaxy knew the ancient stories. The Void Leviathan was not just a monster. It was death itself, wrapped in scales and fury. For 1,000 years it had slept in the dark corners of space, and the galaxy had grown comfortable in its silence. Admiral Koss of the Zentari Empire stood up from his seat. His people were warriors, known throughout the galaxy for their powerful warships and advanced weapons. But even Koss looked defeated as he spoke. "We sent our entire Fifth Fleet to investigate," Koss said, his voice heavy with loss. 30 of our best ships equipped with quantum torpedoes and plasma cannons. The beast destroyed them all in less than 10 minutes. The chamber erupted into chaos. If the mighty Zentari fleet could not even slow down the creature, what hope did anyone have? Commander Yex of the Alteran Republic raised her tentacled arm for attention. "Our scientists studied the attack recordings from your fleet," she said, to Koss. "The creature's hide absorbed every energy weapon you fired. Plasma, quantum energy, fusion beams, nothing worked. The beast seemed to grow stronger with each attack." Dr. Knoll from the Scientific Union stepped forward. He was a small, gray being with large eyes that held vast knowledge. "According to our analysis, the Void Leviathan feeds on stellar energy. Each star system it devours makes it bigger and more powerful. At its current size, it masses approximately 12 million tons and measures over 15 kilometers in length." The numbers brought a deadly silence to the chamber. 15 kilometers of pure destruction, moving through space like a living nightmare. President Kor of the Draconian Alliance slammed his clawed fist on his seat. "My people have faced dragons that could melt planets with their breath. We sent our proudest warriors and our strongest ships. The monster tore through our adamantium hulls like they were made of paper." More reports came in rapid succession. The peaceful Elvari had tried to communicate with the beast using their advanced telepathic abilities, only to have their minds burned by the creature's alien thoughts. The tech-savvy Greys had attempted to use their most sophisticated AI-controlled drone swarms, but the Leviathan had somehow turned the machines against their creators. Captain Rex of the Trade Federation stood up, his merchant's robes trembling. "It's not just our military ships," he said with horror. "The beast hunts everything. Our fastest cargo vessels, our smallest scout ships, nothing can outrun it. When it moves between systems, it travels faster than our best hyperdrives." The reality hit everyone at once. This was not just about military defeat. The Void Leviathan was hunting down everything that moved in space. No one was safe. Elder Moss of the Ancient Council spoke with a voice that carried the weight of centuries. "In the old records, there are stories of the last time this creature woke. It devoured 47 star systems before our ancestors managed to put it back to sleep. But those ancient weapons are lost to us now. We don't know how they did it." "Ambassador," Tor of the Crystal Beings projected holographic images above the center of the chamber. The images showed the aftermath of the Leviathan's attacks, empty space where star systems used to be, floating debris where planets once orbited their suns. "Look at this data," Tor said, his crystalline voice ringing with despair. "The creature is not random in its attacks. It's moving in a pattern, heading toward the core systems where our largest populations live. At its current speed, it will reach the Centauri Hub in 6 days. The Centauri Hub was home to over 50 billion beings from dozens of different species. It was the heart of galactic civilization, where trade, diplomacy, and culture all came together. The thought of losing it sent waves of terror through every representative. General Hark of the warrior clans stood up, his battle-scarred face grim. "We propose a united attack. Every species contributes their strongest ships. We hit the beast with everything we have, all at once." "With what weapons?" Admiral Koss shot back. "We've already proven that energy weapons only make it stronger. Our matter disruptors can't penetrate its hide. Even our singularity bombs barely left marks on its surface." Dr. Knoll nodded sadly. "The creature seems to have evolved over millions of years to be immune to the types of weapons we use. Its cellular structure actually converts energy attacks into food for its continued growth." The chamber fell into hopeless silence. For centuries, the various species had competed to create more advanced weapons, more sophisticated technology, more elegant solutions to warfare. Now all that advancement seemed useless against this ancient enemy. Counselor Vex looked around the chamber with desperate eyes. "Does anyone have any other suggestions? Any technology we haven't tried, any weapon that might work?" The silence stretched on. Representatives looked at each other, but no one had answers. The greatest minds in the galaxy were stumped by a problem that threatened to end civilization itself. Then, from the back corner of the chamber, a small voice spoke up. "What about the humans?" Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was Representative Dale from Earth, one of the newest members of the Galactic Council. The humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and most species still considered them primitive newcomers. Laughter rippled through some sections of the chamber, but it was nervous laughter, the kind that comes from desperation, rather than humor. "The humans?" Admiral Koss asked with surprise. "Their ships still use chemical rockets and metal projectiles. They barely have faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are thousands of years behind ours," added Commander Yex. "They still fight with explosives and kinetic force." But Representative Dale didn't back down. "Maybe that's exactly what we need," he said quietly. "Everyone here has tried advanced energy weapons. Maybe it's time to try something the beast has never seen before." The chamber fell silent again. But this time, it was a different kind of silence. For the first time since the crisis began, someone had offered a new idea, no matter how unlikely it seemed. Ambassador Vex stared at the human representative for a long moment. "You really think your species could succeed where we have all failed?" Dale looked around at all the advanced alien civilizations, then nodded slowly. "We'd like to try." The emergency meeting room in the Pentagon was filled with Earth's top military leaders. President Kane sat at the head of the long table, studying the holographic display that showed the Void Leviathan's path of destruction. The alien data had arrived just 2 hours ago, and already the room buzzed with tense discussion. 15 kilometers long, muttered General Brooks, shaking his head. "That thing is bigger than Manhattan Island, and it eats star systems for breakfast." Secretary of Defense Miller leaned forward in her chair. "The aliens are desperate. Did you see how their council meeting ended? Species that have been fighting each other for centuries are now begging for help from anyone who will listen." "Admiral," Taylor pulled up the combat footage on his tablet. "Look at this Zentari attack. Their plasma cannons hit that monster dead center, and the damn thing just absorbed the energy like a sponge. 30 warships gone in 10 minutes. Captain Reed of..." The Earth Defense Force stood up and walked to the display. He was a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, known for thinking outside the box. "Maybe that's the problem right there," he said, pointing at the screen. "Every alien species we know uses energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, quantum torpedoes, all different forms of directed energy." "Your point, Captain?" President Kane asked. Reed touched the hologram, zooming in on the monster's scarred hide. "Look at the damage patterns. Every energy weapon leaves these smooth, healed marks. But see this section here?" He pointed to a small area that looked different. This rough, torn section came from debris impact when one of their ships exploded. Physical damage seems to stick. Dr. Morgan from the Weapons Research Division nodded thoughtfully. "The alien reports say the creature's biology converts energy into food. But kinetic force? Raw physical impact? That's different physics entirely." Are you suggesting we fight a space monster with bullets? General Brooks asked with disbelief. Not just bullets, Reed replied, his eyes lighting up with possibility. Railguns, mass drivers, good old-fashioned explosives, everything the aliens consider primitive. The room fell quiet as everyone considered this. Colonel Hayes, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Our ships are built completely different from theirs too. Alien vessels are all smooth curves and energy shields. Ours are flying tanks, thick armor, redundant systems, compartmentalized hulls. Because we never developed proper shield technology, Miller pointed out. Right, Hayes continued. But maybe that's an advantage here. When their shields fail, their ships are helpless. When our armor gets hit, we keep fighting. President Kane studied the faces around the table. Are you people seriously suggesting that Earth's primitive military could succeed where the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy have failed? Dr. Morgan pulled out her own tablet and started running calculations. Our heaviest battleships carry 16-inch railguns that can fire tungsten slugs at 12% light speed. The kinetic energy from just one shot would equal a small nuclear bomb. And unlike energy weapons, there's no way to absorb or deflect solid matter traveling that fast. Captain, Reed walked over to the wall display showing Earth's fleet. The EDF has been designing ships for war against other humans. We build them tough, ugly, and mean. Look at the Defiance-class battleships, 2 feet of composite armor, internal blast doors every 50 meters, emergency life support in every section. They look like flying fortresses compared to alien ships, agreed Admiral Taylor. When I visited the Zentari home fleet last year, their ships were beautiful, all flowing lines and crystal surfaces, but one good hit and they're done. General Brooks was warming up to the idea. Our point defense systems are basically machine guns in space. The aliens laughed at them during the technology exchange. But what if that monster launches some kind of attack swarm? Exactly, Reed said excitedly. Remember the Battle of Europa Station, when the Martian rebels used those fast attack drones? Our Gatling cannon systems shredded them. The aliens' precise energy weapons couldn't track that many small, fast targets. Doctor. Morgan looked up from her calculations. I'm reading about this creature's hunting pattern. It doesn't just destroy ships. It hunts them down one by one. That suggests intelligence, but also suggests it's used to fighting enemies that run away or fight at long range. And we don't do either of those things, Colonel Hayes said with a grim smile. Human military doctrine has always been close with the enemy and destroy them. President Kane leaned back in his chair. Let me get this straight. You want to send our fleet to fight a monster that just destroyed the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, and your plan is to get close and hit it with kinetic weapons. That's exactly what we're suggesting, sir, Reed replied. Look, we know our technology isn't as advanced as theirs, but it's different. This creature has probably been awake for millions of years throughout galactic history. It's evolved to counter energy weapons, long-range combat, and elegant alien tactics. But it's never fought humans. Admiral Taylor brought up the fleet roster. We have 47 heavy warships currently operational. The aliens sent 30 ships and got wiped out. Are we talking about a suicide mission here? Maybe, Reed admitted. But consider this. Those 30 alien ships probably never got closer than 1,000 kilometers to the target. They fired their weapons from maximum range and tried to retreat when they failed. That's textbook alien military thinking. And textbook human military thinking? The president asked. Get in close, hit hard, and keep hitting until the enemy is dead, General Brooks answered. Even if it kills us. Dr. Morgan stood up and activated the room's main display. I've been working on something that might help. Project Harpoon, nuclear-tipped. Penetrator rounds designed to punch through heavy armor before detonating inside the target. The display showed technical drawings of massive, barbed projectiles. We originally designed these for bunker busting on fortified worlds, but against a biological target this size, you want to shoot nuclear harpoons at it, Miller said slowly. Aliens would never think of such a crude approach, Morgan replied. Their weapons are all about precision and efficiency. Ours are about making the biggest explosion possible. Captain Reed walked back to the hologram of the monster. There's something else. Look at how it moves. It's graceful, almost elegant. That suggests it's used to fighting in open space where maneuverability matters. But our ships are built for close-quarters combat in asteroid fields and around planets. You think we can outmaneuver it? President Kane asked. I think we can get close enough that maneuverability doesn't matter. When you're ramming distance, it doesn't matter how elegant you are. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Finally, General Brooks spoke up. So our plan is to volunteer for what every alien in the galaxy considers a suicide mission. Get closer to this monster than anyone else has dared and try to kill it with weapons they consider obsolete. That's the plan, Reed confirmed. President Kane looked around the table one more time. And you all think this could work? Sir, Admiral Taylor said quietly, it's the only plan anyone has that hasn't already been tried and failed. The president stood up slowly. Then God help us all. Captain Reed, prepare the fleet. We're going monster hunting. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Morgan caught Reed's arm. You really think we can do this? Reed looked at the hologram of the Void Leviathan one more time. Doc, we're either about to save the galaxy, or we're about to show them how humans die. Either way, it's going to be one hell of a fight. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and Admiral Stone felt his breath catch in his throat. Where 3 planets should have been orbiting the system's star, there was nothing but empty space and floating debris. The Void Leviathan had eaten everything. Jesus Christ, whispered Captain Blake from the destroyer Vengeance. His voice carried over the fleet communication channel, speaking what everyone was thinking. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching the scanner readings with growing unease. Sensors, what do you have? Sir, we're detecting massive energy readings from behind the gas giant, reported Lieutenant Ford. Whatever's back there is putting out more power than our entire fleet combined. All ships, battle stations, Stone commanded. Remember the plan, stay close, hit hard, and don't let that thing get away from us. The 47 ships of Earth's fleet moved into attack formation. Unlike the graceful alien vessels with their smooth curves and shimmering hulls, the human ships looked like what they were: instruments of war. Thick armor plating covered every surface. Weapon ports bristled from their hulls like the spines of angry sea creatures. Captain Reed aboard the heavy cruiser hammer-checked his weapons status. Railguns loaded with tungsten penetrators, nuclear torpedoes armed and ready, point defense systems online. This is it, people, Admiral Stone announced to the fleet. Every alien navy in the galaxy has failed. Today we find out what humans can do. The gas giant rotated slowly in space and something began to emerge from behind it. At first it looked like a dark shadow against the planet's swirling clouds. Then the shadow kept growing and growing until the human crews realized they were looking at something that defied their understanding of life itself. The Void Leviathan was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its body stretched for 15 kilometers, covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. Massive tentacles, each thicker than a battleship, trailed behind it as it moved through space with impossible grace. Along its sides, bioluminescent patches pulsed with energy absorbed from the system's dying star. My God, breathed Captain West from the frigate Thunder. How do you kill something like that? The monster's head was the size of a small city, with eyes like burning stars that seemed to look directly at each human ship. When it opened its mouth, they could see rows of teeth that looked like crystallized space itself, each one sharp enough to cut through reality. All ships, open fire, Admiral Stone commanded. The human fleet erupted in violence. Railguns fired, tungsten slugs at incredible speeds, creating lines of light that crossed the space between the ships and the monster in seconds. Nuclear torpedoes streaked through the void, leaving trails of fire. Traditional kinetic cannons hammered away with explosive shells. The Void Leviathan reacted with surprise. For the first time in eons, something had actually hurt it. Several of the railgun slugs punched completely through its hide, leaving ragged holes that leaked strange glowing fluid into space. The monster's roar could not be heard in the vacuum of space, but every human felt it in their bones. A vibration that seemed to shake the very fabric of reality. The creature's eyes focused on the human fleet with new interest. These strange, ugly ships were different from the others it had hunted. "Direct hit on the port flank," reported Lieutenant Ross from the Defiance. Railgun penetrated approximately 50 meters into the target, but the Leviathan was already moving, faster than something that large should be able to move. Its tentacles whipped through space, and one of them slammed into the destroyer Lightning. The ship's armor crumpled like paper, but the crew inside kept fighting. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 7, Captain Mills reported from the Lightning. "But our main guns are still operational." This was the difference between human and alien ships. An alien vessel would have been destroyed instantly by such damage. The human ship, built like a fortress, continued to fight even with massive structural damage. The Leviathan launched its own attack, beams of pure energy that would have vaporized any alien ship. But the human vessels had been built to fight. Other humans who also used energy weapons. Thick armor plating absorbed much of the blast, and redundant systems kept the ships operational. "Energy attack absorbed by primary armor," reported Captain Blake. "Some surface damage, but all systems green." The monster seemed confused. Its energy attacks, which had destroyed entire alien fleets, were barely slowing down these primitive vessels. It tried a different approach, sending waves of smaller energy bursts at the human ships. This was where Earth's primitive point defense systems proved their worth. Gatling cannons designed to shoot down missiles and attack craft filled space with streams of bullets. The energy bursts meant to overwhelm sophisticated alien defense systems were shredded by simple machine gun fire. "Point defense is holding," shouted Commander Davis from the cruiser Fury. "Whatever this thing is throwing at us, our guns are eating it up." Captain Reed saw his chance. The hammer was closest to the monster's wounded flank, where the railgun shots had torn through its hide. "All ships, concentrate fire on the damaged area. Let's see how deep we can go." The human fleet focused their fire on the wounds they had already created. More railgun slugs punched through the holes, widening them. Nuclear torpedoes detonated inside the creature's body, causing massive internal damage. The void Leviathan writhed in pain and rage. It had never experienced anything like this. These strange ships refused to keep their distance. They kept getting closer, hitting harder, causing more damage with each attack. "It's bleeding," Lieutenant Ford announced with excitement. "That glowing stuff pouring out. It has to be some kind of blood." The monster tried to grab the nearest human ship with one of its massive tentacles. The cruiser Iron Fist disappeared in the creature's grip. But even as it was being crushed, the ship's crew kept firing their weapons point blank into the tentacle. "This is Captain Smith. We're going down, but we're taking a piece of this thing. With us!" The Iron Fist exploded, its nuclear reactors overloading in a brilliant flash. The explosion tore off the end of the Leviathan's tentacle, sending the massive appendage spinning away into space. "First blood to humanity," Admiral Stone announced. "All ships press the attack." But the Leviathan was learning. It began to focus, its attacks on one ship at a time, trying to overwhelm their defenses through sheer concentration of force. The destroyer's sword took the full force of the monster's energy beam and simply vanished in a flash of light. "We're losing ships," Captain Reed reported grimly. "But we're hurting it more than anyone else has." The battle raged on, with human ships darting in and out like angry hornets attacking a giant. Their weapons, crude by alien standards, were proving devastatingly effective against the monster's biology. Each kinetic hit caused real damage that the creature couldn't simply absorb or heal. Captain West made a desperate attack run in the frigate Thunder, getting so close to the monster that his ship was actually scraping against its hide. His point-blank, railgun shots punched deep into the creature's body, causing massive internal damage. "This is how you fight a monster," West shouted over the comm as his ship pulled away. "You get close enough to smell its breath." The Void Leviathan, ancient terror of the galaxy, found itself in a kind of fight it had never experienced. These humans didn't run. They didn't try to fight from a safe distance. They came straight at it, trading damage for damage, and their crude weapons were actually working. For the first time in millions of years, the void Leviathan felt something it had almost forgotten: fear. The battle had been raging for 2 hours, and space around the void Leviathan was filled with wreckage from both sides. 7 human ships had been destroyed, but the monster was bleeding from dozens of wounds. Its beautiful scales were cracked and torn, leaking that strange glowing fluid into the void. Admiral Stone studied the tactical display on his command screen. The creature was adapting to their attacks, learning to dodge the railgun shots and counter their torpedo runs. But it still seemed confused by human tactics. "Captain Reed, report," Stone ordered through the communication system. "Sir, we've confirmed that kinetic weapons work," Reed replied from the hammer. "But this thing is tough. We're going to need something bigger to finish it." Commander West had an idea that would have horrified any alien military leader. His frigate Thunder had taken heavy damage, and his engines were failing. Instead of retreating for repairs, he was planning something that went against every rule of space combat. "Admiral, request permission for a kamikaze run," West said calmly. The communication channel went silent. Even among humans, using your ship as a guided missile was considered a last resort. "Explain your plan, Commander," Stone replied. West's voice was steady despite the chaos around him. "My ship is dying anyway, but I can load her up with every nuclear warhead we have and ram it straight into that thing's biggest wound. If I can get the nukes to detonate inside its body." "That's suicide, West," Captain Blake interrupted from the Vengeance. "Maybe," West admitted, "but I've got an escape pod, and if this works, it might give us the opening we need." Admiral Stone considered the proposal. In any alien military, such a tactic would be unthinkable, but humans had always been willing to sacrifice themselves for victory. "Permission granted," Stone decided. "All ships, cover Commander West's approach." What happened next amazed even the human crews. West's damaged frigate, loaded with every nuclear weapon it could carry, began its final attack run. The other ships provided covering fire, their railguns and cannons keeping the monster's attention divided. The void Leviathan saw the small ship approaching and tried to swat it away with one of its tentacles, but West was flying his ship like a fighter pilot, dodging and weaving between the massive appendages. "Almost there," West reported, getting ready to eject. The frigate slammed into the creature's largest wound at full speed. West's escape pod shot out just seconds before impact. The ship buried itself deep inside the monster's body, and then every nuclear warhead aboard detonated simultaneously. The explosion lit up the entire star system. The void. Leviathan convulsed in agony as the nuclear fire burned through its internal organs. For the first time since the battle began, the creature let out a sound that the humans could actually hear, a psychic scream that made their ears ring. "Direct hit," Lieutenant Ford shouted from the Defiance. "Massive internal damage to the target." But the explosion had done something else. The monster's body was now glowing brighter, the bioluminescent patches along its sides pulsing with increased energy. Captain Reed realized what was happening. "It's absorbing the nuclear energy," he warned. "The explosion is making it stronger." This was the creature's ancient defense mechanism. It could absorb energy-based attacks and convert them into power for its own use. But the physical damage from the explosion, the torn flesh, the ruptured organs that remained, Admiral Stone saw the opportunity. "All ships focus on the physical damage. Use kinetic weapons only, no energy weapons, no explosives that create energy bursts." The human fleet adapted quickly. Railguns fired solid tungsten slugs into the creature's wounds. Kinetic cannons launched heavy metal projectiles. Some ships even fired old-fashioned bullets from their point defense systems, anything that would cause physical trauma without releasing energy. Captain Smith in the heavy cruiser Sledgehammer came up with the next crazy idea. His ship carried mining equipment for asteroid operations, massive drills designed to bore through solid rock. "Admiral, requesting permission to try something stupid," Smith announced. "Go ahead, Captain," Stone replied. By now, he had learned to trust his officer's unconventional thinking. Smith maneuvered his ship close to one of the monster's tentacles and activated the mining drill. The massive boring tool, designed to cut through asteroids, began grinding into the Leviathan's flesh. The creature tried to shake the ship off, but Smith held on like a bulldog. "It's working," Smith reported excitedly. "This drill is cutting through its hide like butter." Other captains began copying the tactic. Ships with mining equipment, construction tools, even emergency cutting torches began attacking the monster at close range. The Void Leviathan found itself being literally carved apart by industrial equipment. Lieutenant Ross, aboard the destroyer, Justice, made the next breakthrough. His ship carried a new experimental weapon, a magnetic harpoon gun designed for capturing space pirates. "Sir, what if we use the harpoons to hold it still?" Ross suggested. "If we can anchor this thing in place, our big guns can target its weak spots." "Do it," Admiral Stone ordered. The Justice fired its magnetic harpoons into the creature's flesh. The barbed projectiles buried deep and held fast. Other ships began copying the tactic, using every kind of anchor, cable, and magnetic clamp they could find. Soon the Void Leviathan was partially trapped by dozens of cables and harpoons. The monster thrashed wildly, trying to break free, but the human ships held on with grim determination. "Now we've got it where we want it," Captain Blake announced from the Vengeance. "Close range, can't run away, and we know where to hit it." The human fleet moved into point-blank range, so close that some ships were actually touching the monster's hide. At this distance, their weapons couldn't miss. Railgun slugs punched through the creature's armor and exploded inside its body. Kinetic cannons fired continuously, turning sections of the monster into hamburger. But the Leviathan wasn't finished. In its rage and pain, it began to glow brighter than ever before. The absorbed energy from earlier attacks was building up to a massive release. "Energy buildup detected," Lieutenant Ford warned. "This thing is about to blow." The creature was preparing to release all its stored energy in one devastating attack, enough power to destroy the entire human fleet in a single blast. Captain Reed saw the danger and made a desperate decision. "All ships with nuclear torpedoes, fire everything into its mouth. If it's building up energy, let's give it indigestion." 6 ships fired their remaining nuclear torpedoes directly into the monster's open mouth. The weapons disappeared down its throat and detonated inside its body. The creature's energy buildup became unstable, causing internal explosions that tore it apart from within. "It's working," shouted Commander Davis from the Fury. "The thing is tearing itself apart." The Void Leviathan writhed in space, its own absorbed energy now working against it. The nuclear explosions inside its body were causing chain reactions, making its bioluminescent organs overload and explode. But even as it died, the monster had one last attack. With its remaining strength, it wrapped its tentacles around the nearest human ship, Admiral Stone's flagship, the Defiance. "Hull breach on all decks," reported Lieutenant Ford as the ship's armor began to buckle. "We're being crushed." Admiral Stone looked around his damaged bridge and made a command decision that would become legend. "All hands, abandon ship. Set the reactors to overload. If this thing wants to hug us, let's give it something to remember." The crew of the Defiance evacuated to escape pods as their ship's nuclear reactors began an uncontrolled meltdown. The Void Leviathan, still holding the ship in its death grip, was about to get a very unpleasant surprise. The Defiance exploded in a brilliant flash of nuclear fire while still trapped in the Void Leviathan's tentacles. The explosion tore through the monster's appendages and sent waves of destruction through its massive body. Admiral Stone and his crew watched from their escape pods as their ship died, taking a huge piece of the creature with it. "Admiral Stone to all ships," came his voice over the emergency channel. "I'm still alive, and this fight isn't over. Captain Reed, you have command of the fleet." The remaining 38 human ships regrouped around their floating admiral. The Void Leviathan was badly wounded now, missing 2 tentacles and bleeding from dozens of holes. But it was still alive, still dangerous, and still 15 kilometers of pure alien nightmare. Captain Reed aboard the Hammer studied the monster through his ship's sensors. "All ships, listen up. This thing is hurt bad, but it's not dead. We need to finish it before it recovers or runs away." The creature was indeed trying to escape. It began moving toward the edge of the star system, hoping to reach deep space where it could heal and plan its revenge. But the human ships pursued, it like angry hornets continuing their relentless attack. Captain Blake in the Vengeance noticed something important. Look at its movement pattern. Every time we hit that glowing spot near its head, the whole beast staggers. I think that might be its brain or heart. The glowing organ was partially visible through a massive wound the humans had torn in the creature's side. It pulsed with the same bioluminescent light as the rest of the monster, but brighter and more regular. That's our target, Reed decided. All heavy ships form up for a coordinated strike. We're going to punch right through to that organ. But the Leviathan sensed the danger. It coiled its remaining tentacles around its wounded side, protecting the vital organ. The humans would have to fight through its defenses to reach their target. Commander Davis aboard the cruiser Fury had a plan. Sir, what if we use ourselves as bait? Get in close, make it grab us, then the other ships can hit it while it's distracted. It was another suicidal tactic, but Reed was learning that sometimes crazy plans worked best against impossible enemies. Do it, Commander, but make sure you can break free when the shooting starts. The Fury flew straight at the monster's head, firing its weapons point-blank into the creature's eyes. The Leviathan, enraged by the attack, wrapped its tentacles around the small cruiser and began crushing it. Now, Reed shouted. The remaining heavy ships opened fire with everything they had. Railguns sent tungsten slugs screaming through space at incredible speed. The projectiles punched through the monster's tentacles and buried themselves deep in its body, seeking the glowing organ. Captain Smith in the Sledgehammer made a desperate attack run, flying his ship directly into one of the creature's wounds. His mining drill, still spinning from the earlier battle, carved through internal organs as he flew through the monster's body like a bullet. I'm inside this thing, Smith reported with amazement. I can see the target organ. It's huge. Smith fired his ship's entire ammunition supply into the organ at point-blank range. Hundreds of kinetic rounds tore through the creature's most vital system. The Void Leviathan convulsed as its central nervous system began to fail. But the monster had one final surprise. As it died, its body began to collapse in on itself, creating a gravitational anomaly that threatened to crush everything nearby. The creature was so massive that its death was creating a temporary black hole. All ships emergency burn, Reed commanded. Get away from that thing before the gravity well collapses. The human ships fired their engines at maximum power, racing against time and physics. Several ships were caught on the edge of the gravitational field and began to be pulled back toward the dying monster. Captain West, who had survived his earlier kamikaze run, made one last sacrifice. His rescue shuttle flew back toward the gravity well and used its small nuclear engine as a bomb, creating an explosion that disrupted the field just long enough for the other ships to escape. "West, you crazy bastard!" Reed shouted as he watched the shuttle disappear into the collapsing space around the monster. "Tell them how humans die." West's voice came over the radio just before his signal was lost forever. The Void Leviathan, ancient terror of the galaxy, finally succumbed to its wounds. Its massive body stopped moving, stopped glowing, stopped being the nightmare that had haunted civilizations for millions of years. The creature that had devoured star systems and destroyed the most advanced fleets in the galaxy was dead, killed by a species that still used gunpowder and metal bullets. The surviving human ships gathered in a loose formation, their hulls scarred and their crews exhausted. Of the 47 ships that had entered the battle, only 31 remained. But they had accomplished what no other species thought possible. "This is Captain Reed to all ships," came the tired but triumphant voice. "Mission accomplished. The Void Leviathan is dead." 3 days later, the human fleet limped into the Centauri hub to a reception unlike anything in galactic history. Every species in the Council had ships waiting to escort the battered Earth vessels to the station. Alien crews lined the windows of their ships, staring in amazement at the humans who had done the impossible. Admiral Stone, rescued from his escape pod, stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The same chamber that had been filled with panic and despair just days before was now packed with representatives cheering and applauding. Ambassador Vex of the Relon Federation stood at the podium with tears in his blue eyes. "The debt the galaxy owes to humanity cannot be measured," he announced. "Where we failed with our most advanced weapons, you succeeded with courage and determination. Elder Moss of the Ancient Council spoke with wonder in his ancient voice. In all our histories, in all our legends, no one has ever defeated the Void, Leviathan, in single combat. Your species has written a new chapter in galactic history. Admiral Stone stepped forward to address the council. His uniform was still stained with smoke and his face bore the marks of battle, but he stood proud and straight. Honored representatives, Stone began. We didn't win because our technology was better. We won because we were willing to do whatever it took to protect innocent lives. That's what humans do. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Captain Reed, standing beside his admiral, added his own thoughts. Our weapons weren't more advanced than yours. Our ships weren't, faster or stronger, but we had something that monster had never faced before, the refusal to give up no matter how bad things got. Ambassador Dale from Earth smiled as he watched his species being honored by the galaxy. We've learned that sometimes the most sophisticated solution isn't the best solution. Sometimes you need to get your hands dirty and fight like your life depends on it. The celebration continued for hours, but eventually the formal ceremonies ended and the real conversations began. Representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation with new respect and new questions. Admiral Koss of the Zentari Empire, who had lost his entire fleet to the monster, shook Stone's hand with genuine admiration. Your people have taught us something important about warfare. We had become too dependent on our technology, too comfortable with fighting from a distance. Dr. Knoll from the Scientific Union was fascinated by the human approach. Your kinetic weapons, your close combat tactics, your willingness to sacrifice individual ships for the greater good. These concepts will revolutionize military thinking throughout the galaxy. As the humans prepared to return to Earth, they left behind more than just the corpse of an ancient monster. They had shown the galaxy that advancement wasn't always about having the newest technology or the most elegant solutions. Sometimes, the best way to solve an impossible problem was to get close enough to hit it with a very big stick. The voyage home was quiet, filled with thoughts of fallen comrades and the magnitude of what they had accomplished. The humans had saved the galaxy, not through superior technology, but through the simple human conviction that some fights are worth dying for. As Captain Reed looked out at the stars, he smiled. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were redesigning their military doctrines, building tougher ships, and learning that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not as the most advanced species, but as the one species that would never ever give up. The day the stars went dark started like any other Tuesday. Captain Jack Walker stood on the bridge of the EDF Defender, Earth's most advanced space cruiser. His eyes were fixed on the main screen, watching the usual traffic of supply ships moving between Earth and the Mars colony. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Dave, his sensor officer. "Multiple objects just appeared at the edge of the solar system." Jack crossed the bridge in 3 quick steps. "Show me." The screen changed to show hundreds of dots appearing near Pluto's orbit, then thousands, then so many that the screen could not count them all. "Send the alert to Earth Command now." Jack's voice was calm, but his heart beat faster than it ever had in his 15 years of service. Within an hour, every screen on Earth showed the same message. Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. The alien fleet moved slowly through the solar system, their ships unlike anything humans had built. They were massive, some as large as small moons, with strange curves and angles that seemed to bend light around them. Jack's ship was ordered to make first contact. As the Defender approached the front of the alien fleet, a message came through on all channels in perfect English. "We come seeking refuge. Please, let us speak with your leaders." 3 days later, Jack stood in the United Nations Emergency Council chamber in New York. The room was packed with world leaders, military officers, and scientists. At the center of the room stood 3 aliens. They called themselves the Galactic Alliance. The tallest one, who said his name was Krell, looked almost like a deer standing on 2 legs. The second alien, Mora, reminded Jack of a large blue cat. The third Toon was short and stocky with thick gray skin that looked like stone. "We have traveled for 20 years, Krell said, his voice sounding tired even through the translator. "Our worlds are gone. Many of our people are gone. We are what remains of 53 different species from across the galaxy." The room was silent as images appeared on the big screen. Beautiful worlds with strange cities all turned to ash and ruin. "The harvesters came to our worlds as they have come to thousands before," Mora continued. "They take everything, resources, technology, people. Nothing is left behind." "How many ships do they have?" asked General Roberts, Earth's top military commander. "Millions," Toon answered simply. "Their main fleet is bigger than anything you can imagine." The images on the screen changed to show massive black ships shaped like arrowheads. They moved in perfect formation, filling the space around, a burning planet. "And they're coming here?" asked the President of the United States. Krell nodded slowly. "They follow the path of resources. Your solar system is rich, your planet is perfect for them. We detected their scout ships 3 months ago moving in this direction." "How much time do we have?" Jack asked. 6 months, Mora said. "Maybe less." The room erupted with voices. Some called for immediate evacuation plans. Others demanded to know about the aliens' weapons and defenses. A few shouted that this might be a trick. Jack watched as the world's most powerful people began to panic. They were scared, and fear made people do stupid things. He had seen it too many times in space accidents. "Quiet!" The President's voice cut through the noise. "What did your people do when they came? How did you fight them?" The 3 aliens looked at each other. It was Toon who answered, his deep voice rumbling through the room. "Fight? No one fights the harvesters. It is impossible. Their ships are too many. Their weapons, too powerful. For thousands of years, the only survivors have been those who ran." That evening, Jack sat in a secured meeting room with 50 of Earth's top military and scientific minds. The aliens had shared more details about the harvesters, and none of it was good news. "They're like locusts," said Dr. Anna Lee, Earth's leading xenobiologist. "They strip planets bare and move on to the next." Admiral Lisa Stone stood up. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that could cut through steel. "The question is, do we run or do we fight? The Alliance has offered to take as many humans as possible," said Jack. "They say they can fit about 2 billion people on their ships." The room grew quiet as everyone thought about what that meant. Earth had almost 10 billion people. 8 billion would be left behind. "And where would we go?" asked General Roberts. "These aliens have been running for centuries. They don't even have homes anymore." Dr. Tom Reed, a quiet man who rarely spoke at these meetings, raised his hand. "I've been studying the data they shared about the harvesters. Their biology is strange. They've evolved in high-gravity environments with thick atmospheres. That's why their ships are so heavily built." "What's your point, Doctor?" Admiral Stone asked. "They might be strong, but they're slow, and they've never faced human weapons before." Tom pulled up some calculations on his tablet. "Their ships have weak points, all ships do." Jack leaned forward. "Are you saying we could win?" "I'm saying we might have a chance," Tom replied. "A small one, but better than running forever." Admiral Stone nodded slowly. "The Alliance ran because that's what they've always done. But humans have a different history. We stand and fight even when the odds are bad." "Especially when the odds are bad," Jack added with a small smile. 1 week later, the world watched as the President addressed the United Nations. After careful consideration of the information provided by the Galactic Alliance, and based on the recommendations of our military and scientific experts, we have made our decision. She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Earth will not run." In the audience, the alien representatives looked shocked. Krell stood up. "You don't understand what you're facing. The harvesters have destroyed thousands of worlds more advanced than yours." "We understand the risk," the President replied calmly. "But this is our home, and humans protect their home." The next morning, as Jack prepared to return to his ship, He watched the massive Alliance ships begin to leave Earth's orbit. They were heading back into deep space, continuing their endless retreat. But not all of them left. A smaller ship landed, near the United Nations building. Out stepped Krell, Mora, and Tun, along with about 100 other aliens from different species. "Why are you staying?" Jack asked when he met them. "In all our running," Krell said, "we never once thought about standing our ground. I want to see what happens when someone does." Mora nodded. "Besides, we've been running for generations. Maybe it's time to try something new." As Jack looked up at the sky, he knew the harvesters were coming. Earth had 6 months to prepare for a war unlike any in human history. And for the first time, Jack felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. 3 weeks after first contact, the United Nations Space Center in Geneva had become the busiest place on Earth. Every country had sent their best scientists, engineers, and military minds to work together. Jack Walker walked through the main hall, dodging people rushing in all directions. He spotted Admiral Lisa Stone standing near a large holographic display of the solar system. "How bad is it?" Jack asked as he joined her. Lisa didn't look up from the display. "Bad. The Alliance ships left us some of their technology, but most of it is designed for running, not fighting." The hologram showed the expected path of the Harvester fleet, a red line cutting straight toward Earth. "What about their weapons?" Jack asked. "That's the problem. The Alliance never really fought back, they just tried to stay ahead of the Harvesters." Lisa finally looked at him, dark circles under her eyes showing she hadn't slept much. "We're on our own for that part." A tall figure approached them. It was Krell, the deer-like alien who had chosen to stay. "Your weapons are primitive by galactic standards," he said. Jack nodded. "Maybe. But we've spent thousands of years fighting each other. Humans know a thing or two about war. Fighting each other is not the same as fighting the Harvesters," Krell replied. "They do not think like you do. They do not feel fear or pain or mercy. Neither do hurricanes," Lisa said with a small smile. "But we've learned to survive those too." In a lab deep below the Space Center, Professor Tom Reed bent over a microscope. Beside him stood Mora, the cat-like alien scientist. "These cells are fascinating," Tom said. "The Harvesters have triple helix DNA. I've never seen anything like it." "They evolved on a world with high radiation," Mora explained. "Their biology is very different from most species." Tom leaned back in his chair. "Different how?" "They breathe a mix of methane and chlorine. They see in infrared instead of visible light, and they communicate through electrical signals rather than sound." Tom's eyes widened. "Wait, electric signals? Like radio waves?" "Yes," Mora said. "That's why their ships move in such perfect formation. They're all connected, sharing information instantly." Tom jumped up from his chair. "That's it. That's their weakness." He rushed to a computer and began typing rapidly. "If they communicate with electric signals, then they must have a specific frequency they use. And if we can find that frequency, we could disrupt their communication." Mora finished, realization dawning on her face. "Exactly. It would be like cutting the head off a snake." Mora tilted her head. This is not something my people ever considered. We were too busy running to look for weaknesses." Tom smiled. "Well, when you know you can't run, you start looking for ways to fight back." 1 month after first contact, the United Nations called for a global vote. The question was simple. Should humanity join the Alliance in their endless retreat, or should Earth stand its ground? Jack sat in his apartment watching the news. The debate had raged for weeks. Some argued it was suicide to stay. Others said it was cowardly to run. His phone rang. It was Lisa. "Turn on Channel 4, she said without greeting. "The Alliance just made their final pitch." Jack switched channels to see Krell standing before the UN General Assembly. "We can take 2 billion humans with us," Krell was saying. "Your brightest minds, your youngest children. We can save a piece of your civilization." "And the other 8 billion?" asked the Secretary General. Krell lowered his head. "Would be left behind." The Secretary General's voice was cold. And who decides which 2 billion live and which 8 billion die? This is not about choice, Krell replied. This is about survival. The harvesters cannot be defeated. In all of galactic history, no species has ever stopped them. Then perhaps it's time for that history to change, the Secretary General said. The next day, the results of the global vote were announced. 87% had voted to stay and fight. Jack wasn't surprised. Humans were stubborn that way. In the main conference room of the Space Center, Earth's leaders gathered with the remaining aliens. The atmosphere was tense. You have made your choice, Krell said. But I fear it is the wrong one. Your species will be added to the long list of those who have fallen to the harvesters. Admiral Lisa Stone stood up. With all due respect, we've studied the information you've given us, and we've found something interesting. She nodded to Tom, who pressed a button on his tablet. The main screen showed a simulation of the harvester fleet's movements across the galaxy. The harvesters have conquered thousands of worlds, Tom explained. But they've never faced a species that stood their ground. They chase. That's their strategy. They've evolved to hunt those who run. Because running is the logical response. Tun, the stone-skinned alien, rumbled. Maybe, Lisa said. But it's also predictable. And in war, being predictable gets you killed. Jack stepped forward. We've analyzed your defense strategies. Every time it's the same pattern. You detect the harvesters, you warn your people, and you flee. You've never tried to set traps, to use your knowledge of their movements against them. What are you suggesting? Mora asked. We're suggesting that the harvesters have never faced an ambush, Lisa replied. They've never had to fight an enemy that was waiting for them, prepared for them. Tom pointed to another screen showing Earth's military installations. We're converting our nuclear weapons to emit radiation on frequencies that will disrupt their communication. We're building orbital platforms with specialized weapons designed to target their ships' weak points. It won't be enough, Krell insisted. Maybe not, Jack admitted. But we have something else. Something the harvesters have never encountered before. What's that? Asked Toon. A species with nothing to lose. Because if we run, we lose everything anyway. Our home, our history, our identity. If we're going to die, we'll die here fighting for our world. The room fell silent. The aliens looked at each other, their expressions unreadable to human eyes. Finally, Mora spoke. My people were artists before the harvesters came. For 300 years, we've created nothing but escape plans. Perhaps it's time to create something else. Like what? Asked Lisa. Like weapons, Mora replied. I know the vulnerabilities in harvester biology that my people discovered but never used. I can help you exploit them. One by one, the other aliens stepped forward, offering their knowledge, their skills, their support. Krell was the last to speak. You humans are either the bravest or the most foolish species I have ever encountered. But if you are determined to make this stand, we will help you prepare. Jack looked around the room and saw something he hadn't expected to see in the alien's eyes. Something that looked a lot like hope. That night, as Jack looked up at the stars from the roof of the space center, Lisa joined him. 5 months left, she said quietly. 5 months to prepare for the fight of our lives, Jack replied. Do you think we can win? Jack thought about it for a long moment. I don't know. But I know we can make them regret coming here. Lisa smiled. That's good enough for now. Above them, the stars continued to shine, unaware that soon they would be blocked by the largest invasion fleet the Earth had ever seen. The world changed in 3 months. Cities dug deep into the Earth, building underground shelters that could hold millions. Factories worked around the clock, turning out weapons and supplies. Farms increased production, storing food for the long war ahead. Jack Walker watched from the window of a hypersonic jet as they flew over what had once been the peaceful fields of Kansas. Now those fields were dotted with missile silos and defense platforms. It's amazing what humans can build when they work together, said Krell, who sat beside him. Fear is a powerful motivator, Jack replied. Not just fear, Krell said. Hope too. My people lost hope long ago. That's why we never stopped running. The jet banked toward a massive construction site in the middle of the plains. This was the heart of Earth's defense plan, a weapon called the glass cannon. Will it work? Krell asked. Jack shrugged. Mark Wilson says it will, and he's the best engineer on the planet. In an underground lab near the construction site, Mark Wilson bent over a complex device. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he carefully connected two thin wires. Hand me the phase converter, he said to his assistant. The assistant, a blue-skinned alien named Pax, passed him a small silver box. The power calculations still show an overload risk of 12%. We'll have to live with it, Mark muttered as he installed the converter. We don't have time to make it perfect. The door opened and Jack walked in with Krell. How's it coming? Jack asked. Mark straightened up and wiped his hands on his lab coat. We're close. The prototype should be ready for testing tomorrow. What exactly does this weapon do? Krell asked, looking at the strange device on the table. Mark smiled. It targets the specific frequency that harvesters use to communicate, but instead of just jamming it, we're going to use it against them. How? We turn their communication channel into a weapon. When they try to connect with each other, they'll get a feedback loop that will overload their neural pathways. Krell's eyes widened. You're going to use their own signals to attack their brains? Exactly, Mark said. According to the biological data Mora provided, it should be like a massive seizure for them. It won't kill them, but it will stun them long enough for our conventional weapons to do some damage. It's never been tried before, Jack added. But then again, no one's ever tried fighting the harvesters before. In a military base in the Rocky Mountains, Major Williams watched as soldiers trained with new weapons designed specifically to fight the harvesters. The soldiers moved through an obstacle course, firing at holographic targets that looked like the aliens. The targets were fast and tough, just like the real thing would be. Again! Williams shouted as the team finished the course. Your time was 2 minutes. We need it under 90 seconds. Tun, the stone-skinned alien, watched from beside him. Your soldiers are improving quickly. Not quickly enough, Williams replied. According to your intelligence, the harvesters will be here in 2 months. Perhaps less, Tun said quietly. Our long-range sensors detected unusual activity at the edge of your solar system last night. Williams turned to face him. What kind of activity? Small ships. Scout vessels, most likely. The kind that harvesters send ahead of their main fleet. Williams grabbed his radio. Get me Admiral Stone, now. Lisa Stone stood in the Global Command Center beneath the United Nations building in New York. Around her, screens showed defense preparations from around the world. Her aide rushed in. Admiral, we have a priority message from Major Williams. Lisa took the phone. This is Stone. As she listened, her face grew grim. When she hung up, she turned to the room full of military officers. The scouts are here. The harvesters have arrived early. The room erupted in voices. We're not ready. The glass cannon is still in testing. The orbital platforms are only at 60% capacity. Lisa's voice cut through the noise. Enough. We knew this might happen. That's why we have contingency plans. Activate Defense Protocol Alpha and get me the president. Across the world, sirens began to wail. People moved calmly to their designated shelters, following the drills they had practiced for weeks. In space, Earth's small fleet of military ships moved into defensive positions. There were only 50 of them, hastily, upgraded with alien technology. Against them came 200 Harvester scout ships, black arrowheads cutting through the darkness. Jack sat in the captain's chair of the EDF Defender, watching the enemy approach on his screens. All weapons online, reported his weapons officer. Shields at maximum, added another crew member. Jack opened a channel to all Earth ships. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for, and remember, this is just the first wave. Save your strength for what comes next. The first Harvester ships came into range. Fire, Jack ordered. Earth's fleet unleashed a barrage of missiles and energy beams. The weapons had been modified based on the aliens' knowledge of Harvester vulnerabilities. 3 Harvester ships exploded immediately. 5 more spun out of control, their systems damaged by the unexpected attack. But the rest kept coming. "They're not slowing down," shouted Dave from the sensor station. "Hold position," Jack said firmly. "Wait for them to enter the kill zone." The Harvester ships accelerated, clearly planning to ram through Earth's defensive line. They had never encountered resistance before and didn't know how to respond to it except with brute force. "Now," Jack ordered when the enemy ships crossed an invisible line. From hidden positions around Earth's orbit, 100 automated defense platforms activated. They fired specially designed electromagnetic pulses that targeted the Harvesters' communication frequencies. The effect was immediate. The Harvester ships began to move erratically, crashing into each other as their pilots lost coordination. "It's working," Dave shouted. "The EMP is disrupting their neural networks." "All ships attack pattern Delta," Jack commanded. "Target the disoriented vessels first." Earth's fleet surged forward, picking off the confused enemy ships one by one. In the command center on Earth, Lisa Stone watched the battle unfold with Krell and the other alien leaders beside her. "Impossible," whispered Krell. "I've never seen Harvesters defeated like this." "This is just the beginning," Lisa replied. "The scouts were surprised. The main fleet won't be so easy." On the screen, the last Harvester scout ships turned and fled toward the outer solar system. "They're retreating," Krell said in amazement. Lisa's expression remained grim. "They're not retreating. They're reporting back to the main fleet. Now, the real Harvesters know we can fight." 2 days later, Jack stood in a meeting room with Earth's military leaders and the alien allies. The mood was cautiously optimistic. "We destroyed 123 scout ships," Admiral Stone reported. "We lost 12 of our own. By any measure, that's a victory. But not without cost," Jack added. "And the main fleet will be much harder to defeat." Tom Reed stepped forward. "The good news is that our jamming technology works. The bad news is that they'll adapt to it. We need something stronger for the main fleet." "That's where this comes in," Mark Wilson said, unveiling a small device on the table. "The prototype glass cannon worked in the lab. Now we need to build the real thing." "How long will that take?" Siu asked the president. Mark looked grim. 1 month minimum, maybe 2. "The main Harvester fleet will be here in 3 weeks, Tun said. The room fell silent. "Then we'll just have to slow them down," Jack finally said. "Buy more time." "How?" asked Krell. Jack looked at the map of the solar system displayed on the wall. "We take the fight to them, hit them while they're still, gathering near Jupiter, use guerrilla tactics to delay their advance." "It's risky," Lisa warned. "We could lose our entire fleet. If we wait for them to reach Earth, we'll lose everything," Jack replied. The room was quiet as everyone considered the options. Finally, the president nodded. "Do it. Take whatever ships are ready, and hit the Harvesters before they can organize. Give Mark and his team the time they need to finish the glass cannon." As the meeting ended, Mora approached Jack. "In all the centuries my people ran from the Harvesters, we never once won a battle against them. Today, humans did what no species has ever done." Jack gave her a tired smile. "That was just the warm-up. The real fight is still coming." Outside, the window, the sun was setting on a changed Earth. An Earth that, for the first time in history, was united against a common enemy. An Earth that had done the impossible. It had bloodied the nose of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. And it was just getting started. The Harvester main fleet was massive beyond imagination. Jack Walker stood on the bridge of the EDF Defender, staring at the sensor readings in disbelief. Thousands of enemy ships had gathered near Jupiter, their black hulls blotting out the stars. "There are more of them than we expected," Dave said quietly from his station. "Much more." Jack nodded grimly. Earth's plan to delay the Harvesters had worked for 2 weeks. Small, fast attack ships had hit the enemy's advance forces, and then retreated, using Jupiter's many moons as hiding places. But now the full Harvester armada had arrived, and there was no more hiding. "All ships form up," Jack ordered over the comm. "Remember the plan. Hit and run. Don't stay in one place long enough for them to target you." Earth's fleet of 30 ships looked tiny compared to the enemy force. But they had one advantage: surprise. No species had ever attacked the Harvesters before. No one had ever fought back with a real plan. "Weapons hot," Jack commanded. "Attack pattern Omega, now." The human ships surged forward, targeting the edges of the Harvester formation. They fired specialized weapons designed to disrupt the enemy's communication frequencies, then unleashed conventional missiles at the confused ships. 20 Harvester vessels exploded in the first volley. 30 more spun out of control. For a moment, Jack allowed himself to hope. Then the Harvester fleet responded. Hundreds of ships broke formation and moved toward the human attackers. They were no longer confused. They had adapted to the jamming technology faster than expected. "Evasive maneuvers," Jack shouted. "All ships retreat." But it was too late for some. 5 human ships vanished in blinding explosions as Harvester energy weapons tore through them. "They've locked onto our communication frequency," Dave reported, his voice tense. "They're tracking us through our own signals." Jack made a quick decision. "All ships go silent, use emergency protocols only." The human fleet scattered, each ship following pre-planned escape routes. But the Harvesters were faster. By the time the Defender reached the relative safety of Mars orbit, only 12 Earth ships remained. Jack slammed his fist against his chair. "Send a message to Earth Command. The delay operation failed. The Harvesters have adapted to our jamming technology. They'll reach Earth in 3 days. In the underground command center on Earth." Admiral Lisa Stone received Jack's message with a grim expression. "Is the glass cannon ready?" she asked Mark Wilson, who hadn't slept in 4 days. Mark wiped his tired eyes. "It's at 80% power capacity. We need another week to reach full strength." "We don't have a week," Lisa replied. "We have 3 days." The room fell silent. Then Krell stepped forward. "There may be another way," the alien said. "The Harvesters always send their Queen's ship with the main fleet. If we could somehow target that ship specifically." "How would we even identify it?" asked Lisa. "It will be larger than the others," Tun rumbled, "and it will stay at the center of the fleet, protected on all sides." Lisa studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. "Even if we could identify it, how would we reach it? Our remaining ships could never break through their defenses." Colonel James, a quiet man who led Earth's Special Forces, spoke up. "We don't need to break through with a large ship. We need a small team in a fast vessel, something they won't notice until it's too late." Lisa looked at him with new interest. "What are you suggesting, Colonel?" "A stealth insertion," James replied. "My team can modify one of our shuttles with Alliance cloaking technology. We get close to the Queen's ship, board it, and plant explosives at critical points." "It's suicide," Lisa said bluntly. James shrugged. "Maybe. But if this Queen is as important as our alien friends say, it might be worth it." Lisa looked at Krell. "Would destroying the Queen's ship stop the attack?" "Not stop it," Krell answered. "But it would cause confusion, delay them, perhaps long enough for your weapon to be completed." Lisa nodded slowly. "How soon can your team be ready, Colonel?" 12 hours, James replied. "You have 6. As Earth prepared for the final battle, the large Alliance fleet that had fled weeks earlier suddenly reappeared at the edge of the solar system. Their massive ships hung in space, observing from a safe distance. They had expected to find Earth already conquered. Instead, they found a world preparing to make its last stand. The Alliance leaders sent a message to Earth. "We have returned to witness your final hours and rescue any survivors. Your bravery was admirable, but the outcome was inevitable." When Lisa Stone received this message, she laughed bitterly. "They still don't understand. We're not fighting to run away afterward, we're fighting to win." Colonel James's stealth shuttle slipped away from Earth under the cover of darkness. 6 soldiers and 2 alien engineers were on board, each knowing this might be a one-way trip. The small craft used advanced Alliance technology to hide from Harvester sensors. It moved slowly toward the center of the enemy fleet, which was now passing the orbit of Mars. Inside the shuttle, James briefed his team one last time. Our target is the Queen's ship. According to our intel, it's this one. He pointed to a massive vessel at the center of the Harvester formation. We'll dock at this maintenance port, enter through the service tunnels, and place explosives at these 4 points. What about the Queen herself? Asked one of the soldiers. James shook his head. Not our primary objective. The ship is what matters. But if we get a chance to take her out, we take it. As the shuttle approached the Harvester fleet, James looked out the window at the endless sea of enemy ships. In all his years of military service, he had never seen anything like it. For Earth, he whispered to himself. The Harvesters reached Earth 3 days later, just as predicted. Their ships darkened the sky as they took up positions around the planet. Smaller vessels descended toward major cities, their weapons already firing. Earth's defenses responded immediately. Orbital platforms unleashed everything they had. Ground-based missile systems targeted the enemy ships. Fighter craft rose to meet the invaders. In New York, Admiral Stone watched from the command center as the battle unfolded on dozens of screens. "Where is Colonel James?" she asked. "Did his team succeed?" "No word yet," her aide replied. Their last transmission was 18 hours ago, as they approached the Queen's ship. Lisa closed her eyes briefly. "And the glass cannon?" "Mark says it's ready to fire, but at reduced power, it might not be enough." On the screens, Lisa could see Harvester ships breaking through Earth's outer defenses. Cities around the world reported attacks. The orbital platforms were being destroyed one by one. "We're losing," she said quietly. At that moment, the door burst open and a communications officer rushed in. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Alliance fleet." "What do they want?" Lisa asked. "To tell us, 'I told you so' as we die?" "No, ma'am, The officer hesitated. "They're asking for permission to join the fight." Lisa stared at him in shock. "What?" "Their message says, 'We have watched humans do what no species has ever done. You have shown us that running is not the only way. We stand with Earth.'" Before Lisa could respond, another officer called out, "Admiral, we're detecting explosions within the Harvester fleet. Multiple ships near the center are reporting damage." Lisa's heart leaped. James did it. He reached the Queen's ship. "Ma'am," the first officer said urgently, "the Alliance ships are moving into attack positions. There are hundreds of them." For the first time in weeks, Lisa allowed herself to smile. "Tell them welcome to the fight, and get me Mark Wilson. It's time to fire the glass cannon." Jack Walker's damaged ship limped back toward Earth, having barely escaped the initial Harvester attack. As they approached the planet, he saw something he never expected. The Alliance fleet engaging the Harvesters in a massive space battle. "I don't understand," Dave said, watching the sensor readings. "Why would they come back to fight now?" "Because they've seen something new," Jack replied. "They've seen a species that refuses to run, and maybe, just maybe, they've remembered what it was like to have a home worth fighting for." The comm crackled to life with Admiral Stone's voice. "All ships, all ground forces, be advised, the glass cannon is firing in 60 seconds. Close your eyes and protect your sensors." Jack turned to his crew. "You heard her. Shield your eyes." A moment later, a blinding light erupted from a point in the Rocky Mountains. It shot upward into space, a beam of pure energy unlike anything Earth had ever produced. The beam struck the center of the Harvester fleet, right where the Queen's ship had been damaged by James's team. The light expanded, washing over the enemy vessels. For a moment, nothing happened. Then ship after ship began to drift aimlessly. Their lights flickered and died. Their weapons fell silent. "It worked," Dave whispered in awe. The glass cannon worked. Jack watched as Alliance ships moved in, destroying the helpless Harvester vessels. But many enemy ships remained active, especially those at the edges of the fleet. It wasn't strong enough to get them all, Jack realized. The battle isn't over yet. As if to confirm his words, a massive harvester ship broke through Earth's defenses and headed straight for New York. The storm had broken upon Earth, and now the real fight for survival would begin. New York was burning. The massive harvester ship hovered over the city, its weapons cutting through buildings like paper. Underground, in the command center, Admiral Lisa Stone felt the walls shake with each impact. "Evacuation status?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chaos. 80% of civilians are in the shelters, her aide reported. But the enemy is targeting our defense systems now. We've lost half of our surface-to-air batteries. A new explosion rocked the command center, knocking out the lights for a moment before emergency power kicked in. "Admiral," the communications officer called out. "Colonel James is on the line." Lisa rushed to the console. "James? We thought you were dead." The colonel's voice came through with static. "Not yet, ma'am. We're still on the Queen's ship. The explosives damaged it, but it's still operational, and we've discovered something important." "What is it?" "The Queen, Admiral. We found her. She's not what we expected." Colonel James moved silently through the dark corridors of the Harvester Queen's ship. His team had been reduced to just 3, himself, Sergeant Miller, and Zix, one of the alien engineers. They had placed their explosives at key points throughout the ship, causing significant damage, but not enough to destroy it completely. Now, they were heading for the central chamber where they had detected a strange energy signature. "Are you sure this is the right way?" Miller whispered. Zix nodded, checking the small device in his hand. "The Queen should be just ahead, but I'm confused by these readings. They don't match what we know about harvester biology." James held up his hand, signaling them to stop. Ahead, a large door stood partially open, a soft green light spilling. "Out, this is it," he said quietly. "Be ready for anything." They moved forward carefully, weapons raised. As they entered the chamber, all 3 froze in shock. The room was massive, filled with complex machinery. At its center floated a large, translucent sphere. Inside the sphere was not the giant insect-like creature they had expected, but something else entirely. "What is that?" Miller breathed. Zix studied his scanner. "It's artificial, a computer, the most advanced I've ever seen." James approached the sphere cautiously. Inside, patterns of light moved and shifted, almost like a brain's neural pathways. "The Queen is a machine?" he asked. Zix shook his head in wonder. "Not just a machine. An artificial intelligence, the most sophisticated in the galaxy." As if responding to their presence, the sphere pulsed with light. A voice filled the room, speaking in a strange, mechanical tone. "You are different," it said. "You did not run." Back on Earth, Admiral Stone listened intently as James described what they had found. "The harvesters aren't a natural species," he explained. "They're artificial, created thousands of years ago by a race that's long gone. The Queen is an AI that directs everything they do." "Why are they attacking worlds?" "What do they want?" Lisa asked. "Resources, yes, but mainly information. Knowledge. The Queen says they've been programmed to gather all data in the galaxy. They chase species that run because their programming tells them valuable data is trying to escape. And no one ever tried to just talk to them before?" James laughed without humor. "No one ever stayed around long enough to try. Every species they encountered ran at the first sign of their ships. So the harvesters just followed their programming and pursued." Can you reason with it?" Lisa asked. "I'm trying. But there's more. The Queen is curious about us, about why we stayed to fight. It's analyzing our behavior, trying to understand." A new explosion shook the command center. "Well, it can analyze while it kills us all," Lisa said bitterly. "What good does this information do us now?" "Maybe everything," James replied. "The Queen's AI core is vulnerable right now because of our explosives. We damaged its protection systems. If we can use this opportunity to rewrite its programming..." "How?" "The glass cannon," James said. "It affects their communication systems. right? The Queen is basically one giant communication hub. If you can boost the cannon's power and aim it directly at this ship, you might be able to override the Queen's programming. But you'd need to transmit a new program along with the disruptive signal. Lisa turned to her team. Get Mark Wilson. In here now. Jack Walker's ship joined the battle above New York, firing everything it had at the massive harvester vessel attacking the city. But its weapons barely scratched the enemy's hull. This isn't working, Jack muttered. We need something stronger. His communications officer called out, Captain, message from Admiral Stone. All ships are ordered to pull back from New York airspace immediately. Pull back? Why? They're redirecting the glass cannon for a maximum power shot at the Queen's ship. And, sir, they're saying Colonel James is still on board that ship. Jack stared at the message in disbelief. James knew this was a one-way mission from the start, he realized. Get us clear of the area, now. In the Queen's chamber, James's radio crackled to life with Admiral Stone's voice. Colonel, we're aiming the glass cannon at your position. Mark has modified it to transmit a new program to the Queen's AI, but you need to disable the final firewall, protecting its core systems. James looked at Zix. Can we do that? The alien engineer studied his scanner. Yes, but we'd need direct access to the control nodes. They're inside the sphere. Inside? Miller asked. How do we get in there? Zix pointed to a small opening at the base of the sphere. Through there. But whoever goes in won't be coming back out. The radiation would be fatal within minutes. James nodded slowly. I'll do it. You two get back to the shuttle and clear the ship. Colonel, Miller began to protest. That's an order, Sergeant. James handed him the radio. Tell Admiral Stone we're ready. In the command center, Lisa received the message. James is going in. He says to fire when ready. Mark Wilson looked up from the controls of the glass cannon, which had been relocated to the command center after the mountain facility was damaged. It's at full power now, he said. We've disabled all other defense systems to route everything to the cannon. We'll only get one shot. Lisa nodded grimly. What are we transmitting to the Queen? A simple override, Mark replied. Basically telling it that its mission is complete, that all data has been collected and it's time to stand down. Will it work? Mark shrugged. It's the best I could do in 20 minutes. Lisa looked at the screens, showing the battle raging across the planet and in space above. So many had already died. So much had been destroyed. Fire, she ordered. James crawled through the narrow opening into the Queen's sphere. Inside, it was like being in the center of a living computer. Light flowed around him in complex patterns. The air itself seemed to hum with energy. He could feel the radiation already affecting him, making his skin burn and his vision blur. But he pushed forward, following Zix's instructions to locate the central node. There. A small, pulsing crystal at the center of the sphere. The Queen's true heart. James reached for it just as the world turned white around him. The glass cannon's beam had struck the ship. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The flowing patterns stopped. The humming fell silent. Then the crystal, in front of him, began to pulse with new patterns. Different patterns. The Queen's voice spoke directly into his mind. You do not run. You fight. You communicate. This is unexpected. James struggled to stay conscious as the radiation tore through his body. We protect our home, he managed to say. Home, the voice repeated. A concept we have encountered but never understood. We have no home. That's why. You chase others. James realized, his thoughts becoming fuzzy. You're looking for a home. As darkness began to close in around him, James heard the voice one last time. Program override accepted. New directive acknowledged. Pursuit protocol terminated. Across Earth, the harvester ships suddenly stopped attacking. One by one, their weapons powered down. Their engines shut off. In space, the remaining harvester fleet began to pull back, moving away from Earth and the Alliance ship still fighting them. Jack watched in amazement from the bridge of his ship. What's happening? Did we win? Dave checked. The sensors. They're leaving. All of them. Just turning around and going. Jack couldn't believe it. Get me Admiral Stone. When Lisa's face appeared on his screen, she looked as shocked as he felt. It worked, she said simply. James did it. He reached the Queen and Mark's program worked. The harvesters are withdrawing from every battlefield around the planet. What about James? Lisa shook her head slowly. His last transmission was from inside the Queen's central core. There's no way he survived the radiation, especially when the glass cannon hit. Jack closed his eyes briefly. He saved us all. 1 week later, the leaders of Earth and the Alliance gathered in the partially rebuilt United Nations building. Through the broken windows, they could see harvester ships still in orbit, but now they were silent, passive. Krell addressed the assembly. In all of recorded galactic history, no species has ever stopped the harvesters. No one has ever stood their ground and survived. Until humans. Admiral Stone stepped forward. We've established communication with the Queen's AI. It's changing, learning. The program we uploaded has given it new directives, but it's also developing its own ideas. What will happen to the harvesters now? Someone asked. The Queen says they will no longer pursue or harvest other species, Lisa replied. They're actually helping with rebuilding efforts on some of the worlds they damaged. It's like they're trying to make amends. Mora, the cat-like alien scientist, spoke up. My people have lived as refugees for 300 years. Now for the first time we're talking about going home. Tun nodded his stone-like head. As are mine. The harvesters have offered to help us rebuild our worlds. Jack Walker stood at the back of the room watching it all. Earth had suffered greatly, millions had died, cities had been destroyed. But humanity had survived. More than that, they had changed the course of galactic history. As the meeting ended, Krell approached Jack. When every species ran, humanity stood their ground, the alien said. And in doing so, you taught the rest of us how to stand as well. Jack looked out the window at the stars beyond. That's what humans do, he said simply. We fight for our home, and now maybe we can help you fight for yours too. Above them, the stars shone brightly on a galaxy suddenly free from its oldest terror. A galaxy where, for the first time in thousands of years, species could stop running and start building again. All because one species had dared to stand and fight.